she wouldn't. It's my birthday.
Greetings, I bid to Dr. Aziz. My name is Isaac Enoch Sabinus, and for today, I will be presenting my thesis called The Impact of Financial Performance Towards Share Price Movement of Malaysian Banking Industry from the year 2013 to 2023. Now, to start off with the presentation, let me lay down the contents. So for Chapter 1, there will be Introduction. Chapter 2, there will be Literature Review. Chapter 3, there will be Data and Methodology. Chapter 4, there will be Result and Analysis for panel data. And for Chapter 5, there will be Conclusion and Recommendation for the thesis. Now we start with Chapter 1, Introduction. So for the background of our study, we aim to examine factors that could impact share price movement within the Malaysian banking industry, and the banks that are involved are Maybank, CIMB, Hong Leong, RHB, and also Public Bank. And the variables that we will be using for this thesis are earnings per share, EPS, ROE or return on equity, net interest margin or NIM, and last but not least, NPL or non-performing loan. Now, with every study, there are bound to be problems or gaps in knowledge. And through our study, we found out that indicators like ROA, return on asset, ROE, return on equity, and dividend per share, DPS, are inconclusive. There are also studies like Enoch and Brijal 2016, which mentions that there is a positive link with DPS as well as price earning ratio or PER. And that positive link suggests that Malaysia focuses more on profitability. However, Al-Mumani 2014 suggested the opposite, meaning Al-Mumani suggests that Malaysia does not focus on profitability. And then there's also another study by Smith 2023, which mentions that liquidity provides stabilizing effect, but others suggest the opposite. So all of this can be concluded that the current methods are limited and can only reveal so much about the dynamics and interconnectedness of financial and informational circuits, meaning what is available in the present is not enough, and we have an opportunity to fill the gaps in the current knowledge. With all of that in mind, it makes us question a few things, like how do the profitability indicators like ROE or EPS impact the share price movement of Malaysian banks? And how do risk management ratios such as NIM, NPL influence share price stability performance of Malaysian banks? And then the third one is, what new insights can be gained by applying secondary data to understanding the determinants of share price movements in banking beyond time series research 10 years back in the traditional way? And last but not least, among internal financial indicators, to what extent do external economic factors ranging from inflation and interest rate influence the share price movement of Malaysian banks? And with all these questions, we want to examine the impact of ROE and EPS on the share price movement of Malaysian banks. We want to evaluate how NIM and NPL ratios affect the share price stability of Malaysian banks. We want to explore insights derived from applying secondary data to analyze determinants of share price movement. And last but not least, we also want to assess the relative influence of external macroeconomic factors such as inflation rates and interest rates compared to internal financial indicators in driving the share price movements of Malaysian banks. Now we move on to Chapter 2, Literature Review. So as a foundation of our study, we have few theories that we follow, and one of it is the Easton and Harris theory in 1991, which implies that both earnings levels and changes will help to explain the regression of annual returns on earnings. Besides that, we also follow the EMH or Efficient Market Hypothesis theory in 1970, which refers to the availability of prices, reflecting all known information that may help investors to achieve higher returns than the market by technical analysis or insider knowledge. Now let us move on with the empirical studies, which includes the variables that we will be using to generate the results of our study. So for dependent variable, we have share price or SP. And then for independent variables, we have EPS, which should indicate a positive value. And this is due to it being widely accepted as a critical determinant of share price movement, and it is also supported by empirical evidence in our literature. And then for the other independent variables, we have ROE or return on equity, and we predict that it will signify a positive or negative value. And the reason for it to signify a positive value is because if share price increase, the investor return will also increase. And if it's a negative value, it is mainly due to the increase in risk will decrease the share price. Next is NIM or net interest margin, which we predict should have a positive value. And this is due to operating costs are usually passed on to the consumers. And then it also highlights the need for robust risk management to maintain profitability. And it is also mainly due to the inflation and interest rates. And last but not least, it has a positive effect on investor confidence, which is usually reflected in metrics like price to earnings ratio. Last but not least, we have NPL or non-performing loan, which we predict should have a negative value. And this is mainly due to consumers with default risk, which leads to delayed collection of loans and resulting in losses borne by the bank and reduces the quality of the loan. Another reason is due to economic conditions like COVID-19 pandemic, the investor sentiment of said company, and also a high loan to deposit ratio of a company. Now, let us move on to Chapter 3, Data and Methodology. So for the sources of data, we use secondary data from Econ Refinitiv, Bursa Malaysia, and banking websites from the respective banks chosen. And then to measure our variable, for the dependent variables, the share price, we will use the monthly share price, aggregate it, and that will tell us the long-term price movements of 1 year period of the banks. And then for independent variables, we have EPS, where we use the formula net income available to shareholder divided by number of outstanding shares. And then for ROE, we will be using the formula earnings after tax divided by shareholders equity times 100%. And then for NIM, we will be using the formula net interest income divided by average earning assets times 100%. And last but not least, for NPL, we will use the formula total NPL divided by total credit times 100%. And this is our research framework, where it shows that the share price is on the right side and it is connected to all of the independent variables that I have mentioned earlier. Please take a look. Now we move on with the model specification, where our model, we use the pullability test or the BPLM test. And as you can see, the formula here, the N signifies the number of cross-section units, T will signify the number of times, and the EIT will explain the OLS residual of the pooled model and explain the sum of T, and all of this will explain that if the chi-square value is less than the chosen significance level, the null hypothesis is rejected, meaning the data can be pooled. However, if the p-value is greater than the significance level, the null hypothesis is also rejected, and the data will proceed with the panel OLS test using the Newey and West 1987 method. And then for our statistical software, we will be using Stata version 12.0. Now we move on to chapter 4, result and analysis for panel data. So with the utilization of Stata software, the results from the descriptive statistics have shown that variables namely SP, NIM, and NPL are nearly symmetrical. EPS skewed to the right and ROE is skewed to the left. All in all, NPL has the lowest minimum value, SP has the highest maximum, mean, standard deviation, and variance value. EPS has the highest skewness value, and NIM has the highest peak value. Even with the simplified values, it is still important to test the validity of the values generated. And this is where the BPLM test is utilized, specifically the pulse method. So here, it shows that EPS and NPL have a positive relationship with SP, while ROE and NIM are negative. All in all, NIM has the highest standard error value and EPS is the only independent variable that is statistically significant to SP. Finally, we have reached the last chapter where I will be presenting the conclusion and recommendation for this thesis. So, in conclusion, we can see that EPS has a significant positive relationship with share price. ROE, NIM, and NPL exhibited statistically insignificant effect on SP, which means that the variables need to be further investigated for their potential influence. Not only that, the results of the three variables that I've mentioned before, it may be due to insufficient application of time period, the sample size, the different industries, market condition, the geographic area, specifically in the context of Malaysia. As for the recommendation, the government should create a more robust regulatory framework to ensure transparency and accuracy in financial reporting. This is because it can enhance the investor confidence and market efficiency. For the public, they should use EPS as a primary metric to make investment decisions. And then last but not least, for private sectors, since EPS and share price is significant from this study, the companies should prioritize their strategies that lead to a sustainable growth in EPS. Not to forget future researchers, we recommend that future studies could explore the role of macroeconomic factors in different industries or countries on how it affects the share price movement, as we believe that it can contribute to more informed decision making, enhancement in market efficiency, and promote sustainable growth in the financial market. And I think that is all from me. I hope you gain a very valuable insight on our issue, and that will be all. Thank you.
You. You're finally awake.